Hi guys, Grace here. Today I'd just like to demonstrate two inks I have from the Noodler's Bulletproof line. The first is X Feather and the second is Rome Burning. So how I'll be doing the demo today will be via two swatches, one left to dry overnight and the other one which you can see in the background is just left dry to touch. So what exactly does bulletproof mean? This is a term that is specific to the Noodler's company. So no other company uses this term, and I had to do a little bit of research before really understanding what it meant. So from their official website, it refers to inks that are resistant to all known forms of forgery, including UV light, solvents, etc. And of course, this also means that it will be water resistant or even completely waterproof when the ink is allowed to dry completely. However, there are two main variables that will affect how bulletproof the ink would be, that is the paper and the color of the ink. So how Noodlers even achieve this bulletproof quality is that their inks bind to the cellulose in paper instead of being pigmented like most other waterproof inks in the market. So if the paper you're using has some sort of a coating or if it's not 100% cellulose, there is a chance the ink cannot bind completely and some ink will still come off upon contact with water. So the color of the ink is the other variable, and generally the bulletproofness of the ink is in this order. The most bulletproof being the blacks, the blues, and somewhere in the middle will be the greens, yellows, and the invisible inks. And the least bulletproof will be the purples and the reds. So the two inks I have here today, the first is the X Feather, which I believe it is the standard bulletproof black with either a thicker formula or maybe an additive to make it resistant to feathering on lower quality papers. The second, Rome Burning, is a yellow-brown color that actually changes to a vibrant purple upon contact with water. So I thought this would be really interesting quality if I were to draw and apply watercolor on top and have some of the ink change color. So now that the swatches are dry to touch, I'm going to apply a layer of water and we'll see the result shortly. So now that both swatches are relatively dry, let's show you one by one how it performs. So this is just regular copy paper, and this on top was left overnight to dry, and this was simply left dry to touch. So Rome Burning, regardless of how dry it is, the yellow layer would always come off because it's meant to show you the purple sheen below. And the X Feather actually performed quite well on both in terms of water resistance. I believe this is because copy paper is 100% cellulose, so it binded very well and like it soaks the ink very, very quickly. So even when it's just simply left dry to touch, it performed well as well. And then when the purple sheen unfortunately doesn't seem to come out very significantly on this paper, but surprisingly dry to touch, you get to see a little bit more purple compared to when it's left to dry overnight. So the next paper I have is the Strathmore 300 Smooth Bristol. I know this is a very popular drawing paper and I thought it would be a good test as well. So with most drawing papers, they are either made with not 100% cellulose or there is somewhat of a coating on top. So Smooth Bristol, I do believe there is a slight coating and that's why it didn't bind as completely as the copy paper. So X Feather, when left overnight, does bleed a little less compared to when just left simply dry to touch. And Rome Burning actually performed better when left overnight to dry. You can see a much better purple sheen from the remaining ink on the paper compared to when just dry to touch. I think this is because for this particular swatch, the purple has yet to settle into the paper in a sense, whereas this, only the yellow came out when I put the water down. So the next two will be fountain pen friendly paper. This is the Midori MD paper in cream. And you can tell that the roam burning performed very nicely. You can see a very distinct purple sheen when water is applied, and there's no feathering in terms of writing and just regular usage. Whereas the X feather definitely performed better when left overnight to dry in terms of water resistance compared to when just simply left dry to touch. A lot more ink came off when exposed to water. The next one will be the Tomoe River paper in 52 GSM. This is a cult favorite paper in the fountain pen community, but it is known to be really slow drying because its special coating allows for this very good performance, but it dries really slowly. So even though when I touch it, it feels dry, or at least there's no ink residue coming onto my fingers, it didn't perform that great when I put water on it compared to when I leave it overnight. So overnight a lot less, and then this one almost covers up the original swatch completely when I use water on it. However, for roam burning, the purple sheen on the dry to touch doesn't show that much, whereas on the overnight one it shows perfectly clear, and you can tell how purple the underlying ink actually is. And of course, you don't expect any feathering when you use Tomoe River paper, so the words look perfectly fine. And finally, the next two papers I have are watercolor papers. So this is the Archer's Hot Press watercolor paper, 100% cotton. So I'm not sure how this will work because there's supposedly no cellulose content, and you can see that even left overnight to dry, it didn't bind that well to the paper. It is still water resistant in the sense that you can still see the underlying lines when you apply water, but it still bled quite a bit, whether it was left overnight or whether it was left dry to touch. And this one you unfortunately also do not see the purple sheen very much, but I would say more so on the overnight swatch compared to the dry to touch swatch for roam burning. It doesn't feather that much as well, so maybe it is this particular piece of paper I have. I would try it again on another video soon if I realize that it was due to the paper that caused this weird performance. So the next one is the Watson's cold press watercolor paper. This does not specify what the cotton content actually is. It just says high percentage of cotton. So I'm not sure what cotton is. It could be like 20%, it could be 50%, or it could be 70%. Nobody knows except for the company, I guess. So here you can tell the X feather performed quite badly when just simply left dry to touch, and better when left overnight. And the feathering performance is also not that bad considering that it's a cold press with texture on the paper itself. This one was surprising in the sense that the roam burning actually showed the purple sheen better when just simply left dry to touch compared to leaving it dry overnight. So overnight it just didn't change color at all. I'm not sure if it's because of the texture that all the ink just sank down, and even some of the purple settled to be so-called waterproof as well, and dry to touch, all the yellow managed to lift, and you still get this nice purple sheen at the bottom. So I realized when making all these swatches that because I was using different nib sizes, the feathering performance is not that obvious. So I redid a feathering swatch with a dip pen, so to make everything more consistent. And you can see on regular copy paper, this is how well X feather can perform. So only on the really really thick lines that I made, like on the end here, you can see some feathering going on, and then on the really thick lines here you can see some feathering going on as well. But on the thinner lines and on the regular size words, it works perfectly fine. And even on this X, it worked fine in the end, and there's no feathering to be seen. However, in the roam burning, you can see feathering going on consistently throughout the entire thing, and especially here you can see how bad it actually is. And even on the small lines at the ends when I lift my pen and there's just that touch more ink, it feathers as well. So even on the Midori MD paper as well, So ignore this. This was because I touched it before it was completely dry and it smudged. But even though this is a fountain pen friendly paper, Noodler's X Feather works very well. Even on the really, really thick lines, there's no feathering at all. But Rome Burning does still feather on the thick lines. The thin lines are fine now compared to the copy paper, but the thick lines will still feather. So that is the property of the X Feather ink. So overall, I think the purple sheen showed best on the Midori cream paper as well as the Tomoe River paper. I think this really shows off Rome Burning's properties really nicely. So if you're thinking of getting the Rome Burning or the X Feather ink or trying other colors and other inks from Noodlers, I hope this was helpful and this can help you pick a better or at least know what you can expect when you are getting Noodler's Bulletproof ink. I'll see you next time, and maybe I'll make a drawing with Rome Burning and see how it goes. And I'll see you. Bye.